The morning sun, usually a cheerful blaze over East LA, felt heavy on Nick Vance's shoulders. Inside the bustling school cafeteria, amidst the clatter of trays and the boisterous laughter of children, he moved like a shadow, serving meals he meticulously prepared, each ingredient weighed, each portion exact. But beneath the worn uniform and weary smile, Nick harbored a secret artistry, a baking talent inherited from his late grandmother, weaving magic into every cake and pastry. His daughter, Lila, with her luminous eyes and fragile health, was the sole beneficiary of his true craft. Unbeknownst to Nick, two worlds were about to collide. His humble kitchen and the unforgiving palate of Elara Thorne, the city's most formidable food critic. The first sliver of dawn barely pierced the grimy window of Nick's small East LA apartment, but he had been awake for hours. The cramped kitchen, still cool from the night, held the faint, sweet scent of yeast and vanilla, a silent testament to his nocturnal labor. Dust motes danced in the pale light, caught in the beam of a single, bare bulb that hummed softly overhead. Nick, 38, moved with a quiet grace born of habit and necessity, his large, calloused hands kneading dough on a flour-dusted counter. His movements were fluid, almost a dance, a stark contrast to the utilitarian efficiency he displayed later at the school cafeteria. He glanced towards the living room, where his daughter, Lila, 9, was still asleep on the worn sofa, a thin blanket barely covering her. Her small chest rose and fell with a fragility that tugged at his heart. He finished a small, intricate pastry, a sunbeam tart, a golden confection with delicate, edible flower petals, arranged like a miniature sunrise. He carried it carefully, a silent offering, and gently placed it on the bedside table beside Lila, a promise of warmth for her waking. "Just for you, my sunshine," he whispered. The words a silent prayer, more than an utterance. A soft, wet cough from Lila's room sent a familiar jolt of anxiety through him. He moved instinctively, placing the back of his hand against her forehead. Cool. For now. His brow, perpetually furrowed, with a worry that had become a permanent fixture, relaxed infinitesimally. Lila was his world, his everything, the sunbeam that cut through the perpetual twilight of his grief. Since Sarah, his wife, had passed, Lila had been his anchor, his reason for every labored breath, every penny earned. But Lila herself was a source of constant, gnawing fear. Her fragile health, a condition that defied easy diagnosis, meant frequent doctor visits and a mountain of medical bills that never seemed to shrink. His baking, a legacy from his own grandmother, was his solace, his connection to the past, and a silent, desperate prayer for Lila's health. It was a world he kept hidden, a magic he dared not expose, lest its fragile beauty be broken by the harsh realities of their life. He felt the weight of those bills like an invisible cloak, a constant, unspoken anxiety that overshadowed his every move. Later that morning, the sterile, brightly lit doctor's examination room felt a million miles away from the warmth of his kitchen. Lila, pale but brave, sat on the paper-covered examination table, swinging her small legs. Dr. Anya Sharma, her face kind but serious, explained the need for a new, experimental treatment. Nick listened intently, his posture rigid, feigning a composure he didn't feel. He gripped Lila's hand, feeling the small, trusting squeeze in return. "The new medication shows promising results, Nick." "Truly," Dr. Sharma said, her voice soft. "But the cost, it's substantial. We can apply for grants, but it will take time." "We'll find a way, Doctor," Nick replied, his voice a little too firm. "We always do." He looked at Lila, her luminous eyes fixed on him, a silent question in their depths. He forced a reassuring smile. But internally, he was crumbling. The doctor's words were a heavy blow, reinforcing the financial dread that was already suffocating him. He felt helpless, inadequate, a failure in the face of a challenge he couldn't simply bake away. Lila, though young, sensed his worry, her own fear masked by a brave face for her dad, a tiny warrior protecting him from her own pain. Meanwhile, across town, in a high-rise office with glass walls overlooking a sprawling, indifferent city, Elara Thorne began her day. The minimalist design of her space, all chrome and stark lines, mirrored the precision of her mind. A large, expensive espresso machine hissed softly in the corner, a stark counterpoint to the city's waking roar. Elara, 35, sharp-suited and impeccably poised, sipping her coffee, reviewing her assistant's latest anonymous restaurant tips. Her face, framed by a severe dark bob, reflected a detached, almost bored cynicism. She dictated a particularly scathing review into a recorder, her voice cool and authoritative. "The culinary scene in this city grows increasingly derivative," she articulated, each word perfectly chosen, meticulously dissecting the latest trend. "Where is the soul, the authenticity? One searches in vain for true innovation, for anything beyond mere spectacle." Her assistant, a nervous young woman named Chloe, cleared her throat. "You have a school lunch program review today, Elara." Anonymous, of course, for the Hidden Gems series, focusing on community impact. Elara sighed dramatically, a subtle flutter of irritation. "School lunches. Chloe, must we?" It's hardly fertile ground for gems. She viewed it as a journalistic chore, an exercise in proving her impartiality even in the most uninspiring settings. She was jaded, brilliant, and deeply lonely, though she would never admit the latter. Her harsh critiques were a defense mechanism, a reflection of her disappointment in a world she perceived as lacking genuine passion. She sought something real but didn't know what it looked like anymore, having long confused glitter with gold. Later that morning, the Roosevelt Elementary School cafeteria was a cacophony of cheerful chaos. Harsh, fluorescent lights hummed, casting a pale glow over plastic trays and scrubbed tables. Nick, in his worn cafeteria cook's uniform, moved with practiced efficiency behind the serving line. He ladled out standard, healthy but uninspired portions of macaroni and cheese, green beans, and apple slices. Despite the mundanity of the task, his presence was warm, a small island of calm in the bustling room. He exchanged genuine smiles and small jokes with the children, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Lila, during her lunch break, joined him briefly behind the line, her small hands helping him stack trays. "Daddy, your macaroni is good today," she said, her voice a conspiratorial whisper, "but not as good as your lemon cloud pie." Nick winked, his smile a flash of warmth. "That's a special for after school, young lady. No pies for the masses until they appreciate true art." He chuckled, but the words carried a subtle undercurrent of longing. At a corner table, disguised in plain clothes, a simple denim jacket, sunglasses, and a baseball cap, Elara Thorne sat, observing. She blended in, an invisible, judgmental specter. She ate a forkful of the macaroni, her expression flat. She scribbled notes on a small pad, her disdain palpable, even to herself. Asterisk, predictable. Utilitarian. Zero culinary courage. Asterisk. She felt confirmed in her cynicism, seeing only mediocrity. Another tick mark in the long list of disappointments. She failed to notice Nick's gentle interactions with the children, the way his eyes softened as he spoke to Lila. To Elara, he was just the cook, an interchangeable cog in the uninspired machinery of school lunches. As evening descended, transforming East LA into a tapestry of flickering streetlights and distant sirens, Nick's kitchen underwent its own metamorphosis. The overhead bulb, which had seemed harsh that morning, now cast a soft, warm glow, illuminating the meticulously laid-out antique baking tools, his grandmother's old rolling pin, a set of finely carved wooden spatulas, a delicate sifter. These weren't just implements. They were extensions of his soul. Lila was tucked snugly into bed, her cough finally subdued. Only then, with the world quieted, did Nick allow himself to truly come alive. He was preparing a complex, multi-layered cake for a small, low-paying catering gig, a wealthy client's obscure request for a historically accurate Georgian syllabub cake. His movements were fluid, precise, a stark contrast to his earlier cafeteria work. He used unusual ingredients, a blend of ancient grain flour, rare rosewater, and a touch of saffron. Humming a forgotten lullaby his grandmother used to sing. This was where his heart resided, where he felt purposeful beyond just survival. Lila, unable to sleep, peeked from her doorway, her small face framed by the shadows. She watched her father's artistry, a silent witness to the man he truly was. "Daddy, can I have a piece?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Not this one, sweet pea," Nick replied without looking up, his voice soft. "This is for the fancy party, but I'll make you a little moon petal tart tomorrow. Promise." He was truly himself when he baked. It was an escape, a form of meditation, where he could forget the crushing weight of bills and the terrifying fragility of Lila's health. Lila, watching him, unconsciously absorbed the depth of his talent, the quiet passion that radiated from him. She felt a mixture of awe and gentle sadness, sensing that his true joy, this luminous artistry, was often hidden from the world. The next morning, the bright, colorful school hallway was a blur of children and chatter. Lila, with a friend, proudly pinned up a hand-drawn poster for a school bake sale. It was for Lila's medical fund, a crayon drawing of her smiling face surrounded by bright sunshine cupcake icons. Nick saw it from the end of the hall, his heart clenching, his face clouded with a mixture of profound pride and equally profound concern. The poster, so full of Lila's innocent hope, was a stark, public declaration of their private struggle. "Everyone says your sunshine cupcakes are the best, Daddy. They'll sell fast," Lila exclaimed, her voice bubbling with optimism. Nick forced a smile, a practiced mask. "Of course they will, sweet pea." He felt deeply moved by her transparent hope, but also horrified by her vulnerability. The stark reality of her condition was now publicly displayed, a silent plea to the world. He felt a renewed urgency to protect her, to shield her from the harshness of life. Even if it meant burying his true talent deeper, keeping his magic locked away. The community park was a vibrant tapestry of autumn colors that afternoon. Children's laughter mingled with the rustle of fallen leaves, and the air carried the scent of crisp October and various homemade treats. Stalls lined the paths, laden with pies, cookies, and brownies. Lila, beaming with innocent excitement, sat at a small table. Before her were the sunshine cupcakes, golden cakes with delicate edible flower petals, each a miniature work of art, a testament to her father's hidden genius. She had arranged them meticulously, placing a small, hand-lettered sign in front, "Sunshine Cupcakes for Lila's Medical Fund, $3 each." Nick watched from a distance, hidden behind the trunk of a large oak tree. He felt a strange mixture of pride and profound shyness. Unable to openly support her, yet unable to leave her side. He watched as a few people bought the cupcakes, complimenting their beauty, but sales were slow. Each unsold cupcake was a small jab at his heart, a reminder of the chasm between his quiet art and the overwhelming needs of his daughter. "My daddy made them. They're super special," Lila announced to every passerby, her voice full of fierce pride. Nick, a bundle of nerves and pride, wished he could step out, explain the unique flavors, the love poured into each one. But the fear of exposure, of scrutiny, held him captive. He felt the sting of his hidden talent not reaching its full potential. yet also the safety it provided from a world that might dismiss or exploit it. Meanwhile, Elara, unwinding from another day of exacting critique by jogging through the park, was in a world of her own. Her headphones played an aggressive electronic beat, a soundtrack to her internal monologue of culinary shortcomings. She saw the bake sale in the distance, her initial reaction annoyance. Asterisk. More amateurish efforts. Asterisk, she thought, mentally writing the dismissive sentence even before seeing the food. She jogged along the tree-lined path, her gaze dismissive, her critical eye already searching for flaws. She intended to pass by quickly, dismissing it as another quaint but ultimately uninspired community effort. She saw only what she expected: mediocrity. But as she drew closer, something made her pause. The sunshine cupcakes, their exquisite beauty, their delicate edible flower petals arranged with such precision, their subtle aroma, a hint of citrus and something else, something indefinable, cut through her cynicism. It was a single, perfect note in a cacophony of amateur baking. Intrigued, despite herself, a rare spark of curiosity flickering, Elara approached Lila's table. Lila, unaware of Elara's identity, looked up, her luminous eyes bright. "Only $3. My daddy made them. They have a secret ingredient." "Love," she chirped, holding one out. Elara, compelled by a force she couldn't name, reached for a cupcake. She felt an uncharacteristic pull, a subconscious recognition of something authentic, something beyond the usual parade of sugar and flour. She offered Lila a rare, small smile, a genuine softening of her features. It was a smile Lila returned with unrestrained joy. Elara felt a subtle shift inside her, a tiny crack in her hardened shell. Elara found a quiet park bench, bathed in dappled sunlight that filtered through the autumn leaves. She unwrapped the cupcake slowly, her critical eye already searching for flaws. She took a bite, her eyes widened. The world seemed to fall silent around her. The insistent electronic beat in her headphones faded into a dull thrum. A single ray of light, almost cinematic in its precision, seemed to perfectly hit her face. The taste. It was extraordinary, a symphony of flavors she had never encountered, perfectly balanced, deeply comforting, yet utterly sophisticated. The moist cake, the delicate frosting, the subtle hints of citrus and spice. It wasn't just a cupcake. It was an experience. Her analytical mind, accustomed to dissecting flaws, was unable to find any. She was completely, utterly stunned. She sat motionless, processing the taste, the texture, the profound sensory and emotional impact. Elara was overwhelmed. Her mind raced, searching for comparisons, for the right vocabulary to describe this revelation. Asterisk, genius. Asterisk. The word resonated with an undeniable truth. This simple cupcake was everything she had been searching for in the culinary world: authenticity, soul, unadulterated passion, and a craftsmanship that bordered on magic. It represented an authentic genius she had believed no longer existed. With newfound urgency, a frantic energy replacing her usual languor, Elara rushed back to Lila's bake sale table. Her cynicism had vanished, replaced by a desperate, almost childlike curiosity. "Who made these?" she asked, her voice uncharacteristically breathless. "Your dad, you said. What's his name?" Lila, startled by the intensity in the woman's eyes, replied proudly, "Nick Vance. He's the best baker in the whole world." Elara bought the remaining cupcakes, pressing more money than asked into Lila's hand, barely registering the child's surprised "thank you." She felt a desperate need to uncover the source of this culinary miracle. Her professional drive, long dulled by the mediocrity she encountered, was reignited, but this time it was fueled by genuine admiration, not cynical critique. She had stumbled upon a treasure, and her instinct was to protect it. That night, Elara's sleek, minimalist office was transformed into a command center of intense research. Empty coffee cups littered her desk, computer screens glowed with search results, and scattered notes formed a chaotic web of information. She feverishly researched Nick Vance, baker, using every journalistic resource at her disposal. High-end restaurants, renowned patisseries, culinary schools. Nothing. The name drew a blank. Her initial excitement began to wane, replaced by a familiar frustration. But the taste of the cupcake haunted her, a sweet, insistent whisper that defied logic. She refused to give up. She cross-referenced Lila's school, searched for local community groups, for anything that might link a Nick Vance to baking in East LA. A tiny lead, buried deep in old school board meeting minutes. A Nick Vance listed as a cafeteria cook at Roosevelt Elementary. The very school she had just reviewed with such a dismissive pen. Asterisk. A cafeteria cook? Asterisk. Elara muttered to herself, incredulous. Asterisk. This level of artistry. Impossible. Asterisk. The cognitive dissonance was immense. Her entire worldview, built on credentials, reputation, and the perceived hierarchy of the culinary world, was being challenged. She felt a prick of guilt, a sharp stab of discomfort. Recalling her dismissive school lunch review, she had been so quick to judge, so blind to the potential that lay hidden in plain sight. Driven by this profound discovery, Elara worked through the night. As early morning light filtered into her office, she composed a passionate, anonymous blog post. The culinary scene. A revelation from the unseen. She wrote of an unnamed baker of transcendent sunshine cupcakes, calling it the most authentic culinary experience of her career, a testament to true, unadulterated genius. She deliberately omitted identifying details, wanting to protect the baker for now, to control the narrative, but also to gauge industry reaction. Asterisk. In an era of performative gastronomy, where chefs chase Michelin stars with more ego than artistry, I encountered pure, unadulterated genius. Hidden in plain sight, a humble creation spoke volumes, reminding me that true culinary soul has no address, no price tag, no need for pretense. Asterisk. She typed the words, a rare sense of purpose and advocacy blooming in her chest. She wanted to celebrate this talent, but also understood the fragile nature of true artistry and the potential for exploitation. She felt an unfamiliar, fierce, protective instinct. This wasn't just a review, it was a mission. The next morning, the school cafeteria, usually a sanctuary of predictability for Nick, felt charged with an unfamiliar tension. The lunch rush had ended, leaving behind the lingering scent of disinfectant and stale food. Nick was methodically wiping down tables, his movements tired, his mind already drifting to Lila and the growing stack of bills. Then Elara Thorne entered. She wasn't disguised today. She wore a tailored suit, her dark hair pulled back severely, her green eyes piercing. Her presence alone was enough to silence the remaining chatter of the staff. Nick froze, his hand still gripping a damp cloth. He recognized her. Everyone in the culinary world did. Elara Thorne, the queen of critics, whose word could make or break a restaurant. She approached him directly, a small, elegant box in her hand. Asterisk. The cupcake box. Asterisk. Nick's heart hammered against his ribs. Mr. Vance? Elara's voice was cool, authoritative, yet carried an unusual tremor. My name is Elara Thorne. Nick swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. Miss Thorne, I saw your review of the cafeteria. He braced himself for a tirade, a public dressing down. That review was incomplete, Elara stated, her gaze unwavering. She held up the box. These cupcakes, You made them, didn't you? From the bake sale. Nick looked at the box, then at the remnants of his carefully hidden world. His shoulders tensed. It's just a hobby. He tried to deflect, to diminish, to retreat into the safety of anonymity. A hobby? Elara's voice rose slightly, a rare hint of passion. Mr. Vance, this is genius. Pure, unadulterated genius. Her words hung in the air, a stark judgment that reverberated through the silent cafeteria. Nick's hidden world, his most private solace, was suddenly exposed to the most dangerous, most powerful person in the culinary world. He felt vulnerable, wary, and a surge of protective anger for Lila. All his fears about exposing his art, about it being exploited or misunderstood, seemed to converge in her piercing gaze. Elara pressed on, her usual detachment replaced by an urgent, almost desperate curiosity. She led him to a quiet corner of the cafeteria, away from the lingering staff. Why are you here, Mr. Vance? Working in a school cafeteria, when you possess a talent that could reshape an industry? Nick reluctantly revealed fragments of his story, his grandmother's recipes, his passion, a talent that had been a source of joy. He spoke of his wife, Sarah, and the crushing grief that followed her death, leaving him solely responsible for Lila. I can't risk it, Miss Thorne, he explained, his voice low, raw with emotion. Not with Lila. Stability is everything. This job, it's not much, but it's consistent. It has benefits. It covers what I can of her medical care. He explained how the sunshine cupcakes, his moon petal tarts, all of his creations, were deeply personal, a family secret, something he made only for Lila, or for these small, insignificant catering gigs that brought in a few extra dollars. But to hide such a gift, Elara countered, her voice softening, it's a crime, a disservice to yourself, to everyone who could experience this. A crime, you say? Nick's voice was laced with a bitterness that surprised Elara. The real crime is how little the world cares about genuine talent when it comes without a pedigree, or when you can't afford to chase a dream because a child's life depends on a steady paycheck. He looked away, his gaze fixed on the empty lunch trays, the mundane reality of his life. I put my head down, Miss Thorne. I learned to survive. This, he gestured vaguely, to the cafeteria. Around them is my survival, the baking. That's for Lila. Elara studied him, a new understanding dawning. Her own life, for all its outward success, felt hollow in comparison to this man's quiet struggle and profound love. I think you're wrong, Mr. Vance, she said, her voice firm, cutting through his despair. I think the world cares. It just needs to be shown where to look. And sometimes, it needs someone to show it. A spark of an idea, wild and bold, ignited within her. I want to help you, Nick scoffed, a dry, humorless sound. Help me? With what? A glowing review of my mac and cheese? No, Elara replied, her eyes bright with conviction. With your baking. With Lila's medical fund. I can use my platform, my connections to make people see. She saw the skepticism in his eyes, the ingrained distrust. I know my reputation, Mr. Vance. I know I'm not known for kindness, but I recognized something in that cupcake, something I haven't tasted in years, something real, and I think it deserves to be shared. Before Nick could fully process her words, a new, unwelcome presence swept into the cafeteria. Chef Antoine Beaumont, 40 seconds, a man whose ego was as outsized as his signature profiteroles, entered with an air of entitlement. He was impeccably dressed, a self-important smirk plastered across his face. Beaumont was one of the chefs Elara had inadvertently praised in her early career, a man she now viewed as the epitome of performative gastronomy. He held a crumpled, flour-stained flyer in his hand, Lila's bake sale poster. "Ah, the elusive artist," Beaumont boomed, his voice echoing in the vast space. He strode directly towards Nick, ignoring Elara entirely. "Nick Vance, is it? Word travels fast, even to my kitchens." He eyed Nick with a condescending sneer, taking in the cafeteria uniform. A humble cook, as Elara's little blog post suggested. Charming. Elara's jaw tightened. Her blood ran cold as Beaumont spoke. She had deliberately kept Nick's identity vague in her post to protect him, to let the artistry speak for itself. Beaumont had obviously tracked him through Lila's flyer, a predatory glint in his eye. "I recognized the description. Of course," Beaumont continued, completely oblivious to the growing tension. "My dear Elara has a flair for the dramatic, but even she couldn't disguise that level of *amateur times genius." He air-quoted the last two words with a sneer. "And you, my friend, have something I want." He pulled out a flimsy contract, flourishing it with a flourish. "I'll take you under my wing. My new protege. I'll even offer you a small sum for your recipes. A generous pittance, considering you're just a cafeteria cook with a knack for making pretty little cakes. Think of the publicity for your little fund. Think of working for Times Me*." Nick's face was a mask of suppressed rage and helplessness. The public humiliation, the bald exploitation of his talent, the transparent condescension. It all boiled inside him. And then he saw Lila, drawn by the commotion, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, her small face pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Leave my daddy alone," Lila cried, her small voice trembling. Beaumont merely laughed. A dismissive, cruel sound. "Oh, the little one. Quaint. Your talents are wasted here, cook. Sign over your recipes and I'll give you a pittance. It's more than you'll ever make slinging slop." He pushed the contract towards Nick, his smile unwavering. Suddenly, a sharp, clear voice cut through the heavy air. "Chef Beaumont, I believe you are mistaken." All heads turned. Elara Thorne, her back ramrod straight, her green eyes blazing with an intensity Nick had never seen, stepped forward. Her presence was commanding, radiating an authority that instantly silenced Beaumont's bluster. "This man's genius is not for sale, and certainly not to a charlatan like you." The cafeteria staff, who had been watching in stunned silence, gasped. Elara Thorne, the city's most feared critic, was publicly denouncing one of its darlings. Beaumont's arrogant smile faltered, replaced by a look of bewildered fury. "Elara, what are you doing? This is hardly professional." "Professional?" Elara scoffed, a rare, uncharacteristic flash of anger in her voice. "You parade in here, attempting to exploit a man whose talent you cannot even begin to comprehend, using his child's illness as leverage. This is not professional, chef. This is despicable." She held up one of Nick's sunshine cupcakes, which she still clutched in her hand, the delicate edible petals shimmering in the fluorescent light. "This," she declared, her voice ringing with conviction, "is what authenticity tastes like. And it comes from a man who cares more about his daughter than about profit. A man you would never understand." She then turned to face Nick, her gaze unwavering, then scanned the assembled cafeteria staff and students, her posture radiating an unexpected warmth. "Many of you know Nick Vance as the man who prepares your children's lunches," she began, her voice clear and powerful. "What you may not know is that Nick Vance is a culinary artist of extraordinary talent, a genius who has been quietly perfecting his craft, a talent inherited from his late grandmother, while working tirelessly to provide for his daughter Lila. She paused, her eyes softening as she looked at Lila, who was now clutching Nick's leg, her fear slowly giving way to bewildered pride. Lila, as some of you know, has a serious medical condition, and every single cupcake, every single pastry her father creates, is an act of love, a silent prayer for her health, a testament to his unwavering dedication. He bakes not for fame, but for family, not for profit, but for survival. Nick Vance isn't just a cook. He is an artist, a guardian of culinary tradition, and a father whose love for his daughter shines in every creation. She gestured to the cupcake in her hand. This is what authenticity tastes like. The cafeteria fell silent, a profound awe settling over the room. Chef Beaumont, his face ashen, mumbled an excuse and hastily retreated. Nick stood there, overwhelmed, tears welling in his eyes, as his deepest secret was not only exposed but celebrated by the very person he had feared most. Lila, no longer scared, ran to hug him, her small arms wrapped tightly around his waist, her face beaming. Elara, witnessing the scene, felt a profound sense of rightness, of finally using her platform for true value, experiencing a personal redemption she hadn't known she craved. The news spread like wildfire. Elara Thorne's public exposé of Chef Beaumont, coupled with her passionate endorsement of Nick Vance, became the culinary scandal and sensation of the year. News channels ran features on the Sunshine Cupcake phenomenon and the Critic's redemption. Elara's usually cold, analytical reporting had taken a deeply personal, surprisingly emotional turn, captivating audiences. From her sleek office, Elara watched the news reports with a serene smile on her face. Her phone rang incessantly with calls from publishers, investors, and even rival chefs eager to back Nick. "Tell them I'll arrange a meeting," she instructed Chloe, her assistant, her voice now imbued with a quiet determination. But his terms must be met. Every single one. She felt deep satisfaction, knowing she had used her influence to make a real, tangible impact. Her focus was now entirely on ensuring Nick's success was on his time's terms, not driven by exploitation or commercial greed. Meanwhile, back in his apartment kitchen, Nick was baking, but with a visible lightness in his movements. He was still in his cafeteria uniform, but the weight on his shoulders felt significantly lighter. Lila sat at the counter, happily eating a newly baked moon petal tart, her legs swinging. Elara was there, not as a critic, but as a quiet friend, observing, sipping a mug of tea. The kitchen, once a place of solitary labor, now hummed with a different kind of energy, a shared warmth. "Daddy, is the new medicine going to work?" Lila asked, her voice small, a fragile hope in her eyes. Nick gathered her into a hug, his eyes shining. "It will, my love. We're going to make sure of it." He glanced at Elara, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Elara smiled, a genuine warmth in her eyes, a softness Nick found himself increasingly drawn to. Hope, a feeling Nick had almost forgotten, was blooming for the first time in years. His love for Lila is still his driving force, but now his path felt clear, illuminated by a kindness he had never expected. Lila was optimistic, sensing a profound change for the better, a brighter future unfolding. Elara felt a quiet contentment, a sense of belonging she hadn't known she craved. Weeks later, the Sunshine Bakehouse had its grand opening. It was a vibrant, bustling bakery and cafe, housed in a renovated storefront in East LA, just a few blocks from Lila's school. Warm, inviting light streamed through large windows, illuminating displays of Nick's exquisite creations: the Sunshine Cupcakes, moon petal tarts, starlight scones, and a dizzying array of pastries that blurred the line between food and art. The aroma of freshly baked goods filled the air, a symphony of vanilla, cinnamon, and warm sugar. It was tastefully decorated, humble, yet elegant, a reflection of Nick's understated artistry. Nick, now in a crisp chef's jacket, worked behind the counter, smiling genuinely as a line of customers stretched out the door. Lila, looking healthier and radiating confidence, proudly handed out samples, her small voice clear and bright. "Welcome to the Sunshine Bakehouse. Try a moon-petal tart, Elara." No longer the detached critic but a vital part of this new enterprise, helped out, pouring coffee, and chatting with customers like a family member. Dr. Sharma, along with other community members and teachers from Lila's school, were all present, celebrating this triumph. Elara, holding a steaming mug, playfully elbowed Nick. "Never thought I'd be serving coffee, chef." Nick laughed. A deep, joyful sound Elara found herself cherishing. "And I never thought I'd see my name on a sign." We all have our surprises. He was filled with gratitude and joy. His dream realized, his fears for Lila abated. Lila was thriving, her laughter ringing freely, surrounded by love and community. Elara felt a profound sense of fulfillment, her cynicism replaced by genuine warmth and purpose, realizing she'd found something far more meaningful than any 5-star review. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the now quieter bakery, Nick, Lila, and Elara sat at a small table near the window. Lila, nestled on Nick's lap, took a bite of a newly invented pastry, a delicate, buttery starlight scone. "Daddy, this is the best one yet," Lila exclaimed, her eyes wide with delight. "What's the secret ingredient?" Nick and Elara exchanged a knowing, tender glance. Nick hugged Lila tighter. "Hope, sweetheart, and a lot of love." Elara reached across the table, gently wiping a smudge of flour from Nick's cheek, her fingers lingering for a moment, then intertwining with his. This quiet moment, bathed in the soft, fading light, encapsulated their new, chosen family. Nick felt a love so potent, it banished all lingering fear. Lila was secure, happy, and utterly cherished. Elara felt connected, truly seen, and utterly at home. Her heart full, in a way it had never been. The future was bright, filled with the sweet promise of shared dreams, a testament to the fact that sometimes the greatest treasures are found not in grand pronouncements, but in the humble, heartwarming magic of a sunshine cupcake.